The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Seth Cropsey is a former naval officer and undersecretary of the Navy, writing in the Wall Street Journal about the opportunity that Israel has handed America, according to Seth Cropsey. He argues, even if the regime doesn't implode, a weak, vulnerable Iran provides an overwhelmingly strengthened position to the U.S. in its struggle against the Eurasian axis. The U.S. can pressure Iran into cutting oil exports on Russia's behalf, eliminate the Caspian Sea route for evading sanctions, and prevent Iran's use as a technological smuggling hub. Iran's illicit oil tanker fleet is also essential to Russian invasion of energy sanctions. Without Tehran's backing, this network becomes much weaker. China would stand to lose much more than Europe from a disruption in Iranian oil exports. If they were taken offline fully, the Gulf states could fill the gap, albeit slowly, but only because of American support. The U.S. could finally establish a stranglehold on oil exports to Asia, thus providing significant leverage over China. The U.S. has a unique opportunity to gain a potentially decisive advantage against Russia and China. To seize it, Mr. Trump would strengthen U.S. security immeasurably by allowing Israel to finish the job against Iran, if necessary, applying American power to this end as well. Yeah, I think that's well stated. And it's why, as we discussed earlier in the program, I think that Bibi's apparent desire to have America support their efforts, particularly as it pertains to those bunker-busting bombs that Israel needs to take out the enrichment site at Fordo, I think that's the right and proper move for America Firsters, in part for the reasons articulated by Seth Cropsey. For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by Ruthie Blum, award-winning columnist and senior contributing editor at Jewish News Syndicate, JNS, former advisor at the office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and author of To Hell in a Handbasket, Carter, Obama, and the Arab Spring. Ruthie Blum, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
What do you say to the case that Seth Cropsey makes?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I would say from the Israeli side, not the American side, that this is also a mission to rid the world of its most pernicious force right now. And to neutralize China and Russia would be, of course, an added benefit. Now, Israel is directly threatened by Iran, that has repeatedly vowed to wipe it off the map. But it is also a threat to the United States and the whole Western world, and, may I point out, the Arab world. So the naysayers inside the Trump administration and outside, the marriage between the far left and the far right, or what we could call the woke right, is really something that I'm glad that President Trump is not listening to.
Although there does seem to be, reportedly, maybe you have different knowledge of this, but reportedly some daylight between Trump and Netanyahu when it comes to this campaign, where Trump is seemingly trying to compel Iran back to the negotiating table, and Bibi seems to believe that is a exercise in futility.
Yes, well, first of all, I don't believe that there's a rift between them at all. I think that's nonsense. And when President Trump says he wants to bring Iran back to the negotiating table, which, by the way, he just said yesterday on Air Force One that he wants to end the war, not achieve a ceasefire. Okay, and that's a very big distinction.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a rift. What I think
I didn't say rift. I said daylight between them.
Oh, well, daylight, right? Okay, because there are a lot of people saying there's a rift. The Israeli left has been saying that for weeks now. I think President Trump, what he means by the negotiating table is capitulate, telling Iran, okay, come and agree to our terms and capitulate totally. He now sees that that's impossible. Now, it's true that Netanyahu realizes that no deal with Iran is a good deal. There is no such thing as a good deal with Iran. But still, I think it's a good thing that President Trump has not just said we're backing Israel on every move. And why? Because the naysayers are claiming that Israel is dragging the United States into a war that it doesn't want. And so I think that the daylight is more a PR move than it is genuine.
Mm-hmm. And the reporting of an apparent disagreement over whether or not to target the Ayatollah for assassination or elimination.
Okay, so first of all, I heard a report just recently, and I don't know if it's true, that the White House denied that President Trump said that. After all, note that all the news outlets that are reporting that say reportedly Trump told Netanyahu not to assassinate the supreme leader. You don't hear President Trump saying it on video. You hear reports that he said it.
Yeah,
So you think that's fake news?
Well, and interestingly, I mean, Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, Democrat, said no. They should assassinate the supreme leader.
Yes, well, we've seen throughout this war since the October 7th massacre by Hamas, an Iranian proxy, that taking out the leaders severely weakens these groups, the terrorist groups, and Iran. So I think that it, of course, would be wise to do it if it's possible to do. And if President Trump did, I think it's fake news. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that Trump did tell Netanyahu, don't do it. The reason would be that President Trump is saying America is not going after the leader of a country. It's one thing to go after terrorist leaders, all right, like Hamas and Hezbollah, and it's quite another to assassinate a leader of another country. But again, if he did say it, I think this is just, a kind of, again, I would say PR and not genuine. And I don't think he cares one way or another if Israel assassinates the supreme leader. I just think he's saying we're not doing it. That's what I think it means.
Will a regime change help Israel?
Oh, definitely. The regime change will help the world. Iran, during the time of the Shah, it wasn't perfect. The Shah had problems, but he was a real friend of the West, and he was a real friend of Israel. And the Iranian people, prior to the Islamic Revolution in 1979, Iranian women were wearing miniskirts and hanging out at cafes and discussing literature. Okay, so however bad the Shah seemed at the time, it's nothing compared to after the Islamic Revolution. And at the time, even the Shah was moving to reform, and that all got thrown in the garbage when the Ayatollah Khomeini came back from exile and took over.
Well, what do you think the prospects are? I know that the statements have been made that regime change is not something that we're intending, but it would be a happy occurrence if it came to pass. And so what are the prospects? And, there's a lot of talk about this as an opportunity for the peaceful pluralist elements of Iranian society to rise up, and perhaps the West can give some material support to those elements that do. But what's your handle on the prospect of it?
Oh, definitely. It gives them an opportunity. I'm not saying that neither Israel nor the United States should or can force regime change in Iran. That's not the goal. But the Iranian people, as we saw during the Obama administration and then during the Biden administration, anytime the Iranians took to the streets to protest the regime and America didn't back them, give them moral support, forget about physical support, even moral support, they were just gunned down in the streets. And so they lived in terror. also tortured, murdered, in prisons. What this does is provide them an opportunity. I'll tell you, I heard from a Middle East expert who knows Farsi fluently, who speaks Farsi. Mm-hmm. He said that a joke going on in Iran right now is the following. The Iranians are telling this joke, that nobody knows where Ali Khamenei is hiding except the Israelis.
Right. Yes. Well, yeah, I think the world is pretty impressed after the Hezbollah pager operation.
Yeah.
In addition to these nuclear strikes too, which were, well planned and well executed. But what concerns do you have? I know we heard from the Israeli ambassador to the U.S. that we're not trying to contain the war; we're trying to win this war, which of course is the right disposition. But what concerns do you have about potential pitfalls here? That's going well to this point, but there are always uncertainties and dangers afoot. What concerns you from an Israeli or an American perspective?
Yes. Well, I would say that at the moment, I don't see the pitfalls, but if there are, they would involve capitulating to Iran in some fashion. For example, one pitfall might be that pressure starts to mount on President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu to stop. The way the Israeli left has been pressuring Netanyahu to stop the war in Gaza before it's finished. Though there it's a different situation because there are still hostages held by Hamas. But if we don't, when I say we, I mean Israel right now, if we don't finish the job, so to speak, it's worse to poke a bear than to kill it, So that would be a pitfall, but I don't see that at the moment. At the moment, I see a fantastic victory taking place. It's only been 4 days.
Right.
And see the amazing accomplishment.
Well, what is the atmosphere like? What are people living in fear? What's it like in Israel right now?
Well, in Israel, and I can tell you because my kids, I'm right now in New York visiting, and my kids in Israel are all in bomb shelters, spending the nights in bomb shelters or whenever there's an alert. And several, not many, but several people were killed and many injured in these missile attacks because these Iranian missiles are way more powerful than the Houthi missiles that we were experiencing and Hamas rockets and missiles and drones. However, it's a small number compared to what we anticipated. And Israelis are very obedient about going to shelters. But all Israel, I'll tell you, there's total consensus that this is necessary. And therefore, Israelis are for it, even though they have to keep running to bomb shelters.
But can total victory be achieved if Israel is unable to take out the enrichment site at Fordo? And does Israel not need the United States' participation to accomplish that?
Either U.S. participation or U.S. Provision of the proper bunker busters to do it. One or the other. Personally, I'd prefer that Israel were provided the bombs and would take care of it without U.S. help, precisely because of what I said, this idea that somehow Israel is dragging America into a war. It's nonsense, but there's that, I would say, disgruntlement among certain elements in America. So it would be better if Israel handled it alone. But if not, and I think that President Trump is getting to the point where he says, no, I'm sorry, this is an American interest. And I also believe that Trump possibly, he sees that Israel is doing so well that he would like to join and be part of this historic moment.
But you do agree that Fordo needs to go for total victory to be achieved?
Oh, absolutely. But I think that's going to happen. That's why I'm optimistic. And by the way, I'm not normally optimistic about these things.
Oh, really?
But I see a real shift in public perception.
Mm-hmm. Ruthie Blum, award-winning columnist, senior contributing editor at JNS, former advisor to the office of Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, and author of the book To Hell in a Handbasket, Carter, Obama, and the Arab Spring. Ruthie Blum, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in